Welcome, my friends, to the much anticipated Things You Missed series for the Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Erdtree. If it's your first time here, or you need a refresher, let me give you a quick rundown of what this series is all about. I will be taking you through every area in the game in the order that I completed it and the order that I recommend you do it, and I will be highlighting every single important item that I advise you grab before you move on to the next area. Please note, for the most part, minor items such as arrows, low-level smithing stones, and golden runes I will completely ignore. But anything of rare quality or above, or anything else of importance, I will point out exactly where it is and how to go and acquire it. And as always, if I have missed anything, please do let me know in the comments. At the end of the day, I have had to scour the entirety of one of the biggest and most confusing games in existence, with absolutely no previous knowledge, assistance, or guides. Other than bouncing thoughts and ideas off of Smotown, who is an absolute legend. It's been really fun working with you, dude. So, chances are I may have missed a couple of things. So please let me know if I have missed anything, and I'll keep track of it so that down the line I can create another episode of the things I missed. And finally, before we jump into what you're all here for, as for the frequency of these videos, during the base game, I did one every 3 or 4 days as I was still working a full-time job, and many people said this was way too slow and most people got bored and moved on before I got to the end of the series. So, as I'm now able to do this full-time, I will be releasing an episode every other day with lots of other juicy guides, secrets and build videos, etc. sprinkled in between. With that, now let's finally jump into episode 1 of the things you missed in the Shadow of the Erdtree. Obviously, you'll start out by speaking to Leda and interacting with the Empyrean Cocoon once you have defeated both Mohg and Radahn. And when you're here and you've lit the first Site of Grace, the first thing we'll do is head northeast and go and grab the Gravesite Plain map. From this point on, the only real negative feedback I got from my first attempt at the Things You Missed series during the base game was that I didn't show the map quite as often as I should, and sometimes people got confused where they should go. So I'll do my best to use both markers and the map as often as possible and make this super clear and easy to follow. So now, with the first few markers set and now we know where we want to go, let's head straight forwards and into the Scorched Ruins. Feel free to clear the area first. I'll be running past all the enemies because I've done this 3 times already. Firstly, right here you can grab your first ever hefty cracked pot. Then swing round the building, head up the stairs, and you can get your first new cookbook, the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 1. Over to the other side of the ruins on the west is a few more minor items. There's a rune just below where we've just grabbed the Fell Calling Finger Remedy. But now we'll head through these buildings and climb up here, and inside this room you will find the Blade of Mercy. This is a new talisman that will increase your attack power temporarily every time you do a critical hit. Now, on our way back down, we can grab the bone darts. And as I pointed out earlier, here's the Shadow Realm rune too. Also, if you want to be super thorough in the ruins, inside this really awkward to reach balcony is a few black fireflies. Now we're going to head north, and this is where I discover that these enemies can disappear. So I'm going to quickly jump back to the Gravesite Plain, beeline back here, and kill this wandering noble before he disappears, allowing me to loot the Erdtree fragment. Now we'll go northeast and into this tiny little cave, grab our first new painting, the Sacred Tower. Once you have grabbed the Sacred Tower painting, don't worry about where to go to acquire the reward, because you literally cannot get it until you have activated something very close to the end of the game. So we'll come back to this much later on in the series. And then hugging the cliff to the east, we'll head south, getting a revered Spirit Ash right on the edge of the cliff here. And finally, if we go even further south still, you'll be able to pick up a larval tear, but only if it is night time in your game. Make sure that's the case, or this won't be here. Now, back at the Gravesite Plain, once you've used your Erdtree Blessing and Revered Spirit Ash, we will now head southeast into the forest, where if you look closely, you will see Logur, the Beast Claw, wandering around. There are also some strange white owls here that will scream and attract his attention. So if you want, you can use these to bait him in a particular direction so you can more easily gank him. And once you have defeated him, you will get your first weapon in a brand new category, the Beast Claw. I will again hear another screech just here, but we shall ignore that and continue heading northeast, looting a few minor items and killing the enemies on our way to the Church of Consolation. Once you're prepared, you can defeat the Black Knight. You will acquire his Great Hammer, which has a special ability that makes it insanely powerful in guard counter focused builds. And when you've cleared the vicinity, you can loot 2 Erdtree fragments from the church. Now you want to head east to this camp, clear out the camp and loot any minor loot around here. Now you're going to hug the cliff to the north and go behind the waterfall. Eventually you'll come upon a few enemies and the Blessing of Marika. That's everything we needed from here, so I'll meet you back at the site of grace and we'll continue our journey north. Before we move on to the next segment, I just want to remind you that we do also have a Patreon that you can go and sign up to if you would like to unlock exclusive rewards. Starting from as low as the Squire tier, you can unlock early access to all future videos. So if you want to get your hands on the Things You Missed series early, along with loads of other tips and tricks and even build guides, go check it out at patreon.com/DomsRoundtable. And if you fancy checking out the higher tiers, you'll even get exclusive merchandise and other rewards, such as a private Discord channel where I will be at your beck and call. So if that sounds good, go check it out, and now let's get back to the next section of the video. Before we start, let me open up the map and you'll see the markers that I've placed. Near to marker 1 is a site of grace, so let's head there first. You will obviously see the Furnace Golem off in the distance. Ignore him for now, we will tackle him very shortly. For now, keep heading northeast, and once you've cleared the area, you can grab a new Backhand blade. I know I said I wasn't going to cover minor items, but as we're here and we need to loop around anyway, keep heading northwest and you can get the Grave Glovewort 3 here. Now head west over to the other side of the plains. You can light a Site of Grace, grab a Erdtree fragment and introduce yourself to some new NPCs. Once you've done this, head south. There'll be a load of Gravebirds and a load of them new blue spectral worm enemies. Feel free to ignore them though, they are not hostile. And also you'll find the entrance to a crypt. Activate the summoning pool sign if you wish, and down here you can go and fight the Black Jail Knight. As this is a jail, you cannot summon spirit ashes, but due to the fact that there's a summoning pool there, I believe you may be able to summon players to help you. He can be pretty damn tough. Luckily, the build that I advised you to use in the DLC, as you can see here, absolutely melted him, and you acquire not only his full armor set, but also his sword. Once he's dead, we're done here. So now, before teleporting back to the 3-path cross Site of Grace, you can also tackle the Furnace Golem if you would like to. My advice to take him down is just have as much stance break damage as you possibly can. Stay mounted on Torrent the whole fight and just keep whacking away at his legs. Make sure you're using your double jumps to jump over his flame attacks, and just be very careful if he starts to swing around wildly. Just back off and wait for him to finish. Also, don't get grabbed because he will put you in his head, and that isn't very pleasant. After you've staggered him a few times, he will drop to the ground, and a crit will deal half of his health. Repeat this cycle one more time, and you will have him defeated. Once you defeat the Furnace Golem, you will be rewarded with a Furnace Visage and also the Deflecting Hard tier. Firstly, for the Furnace Visage, this is a new crafting material. Exactly as it states, it is exceedingly rare to find. They are limited. In fact, I believe during the duration of my 100% playthrough, I acquired 22 of these to be precise. And you definitely want to use them wisely and save at least a couple, because a few of them are actually required to access certain hidden optional areas. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, I'll cover that in a few episodes' time. Also, as I say, you'll get the Deflecting Hard tier, which is an absolute dream for people with a more defensive style. If you're not really comfortable with parrying, but you would like your defensive build to have a few more offensive options, then the Deflecting Hardtear is for you. This can be used both with your shield or your weapon, and all you need to do is block just before an attack hits. And as it states, this will boost not only your guard poise, but also your damage negation, meaning you take less damage and you are less likely to be staggered. And on top of this, if you do successfully execute a spontaneous guard through the use of the Deflecting Hardtear, your next guard counter will also have increased damage. So last minute blocks and guard counters are now a really viable build strategy for the DLC. This makes them super powerful and is something that hopefully a lot of people will be excited to learn. Teleport back to the 3-path cross Gravesite and we'll grab the last item for this part of the video. Here you want to head northwest and keep hugging the cliff, and eventually you'll come upon the Ash of War Savage Lion's Claw. I was way off with my marker, so let me open the map and show you exactly where it is. It's just here. Now that you've done that, make sure you're prepared and we're going to head north into the abandoned Ailing village. As always, I'm going to start by placing down some rough markers in the general vicinity of where we're aiming to go. And now let's go. The first thing I advise you do is grab this Site of Grace just in case you die. And then I spend ages and ages fumbling around to the east because I was so sure there was a larval tier here. Turns out there is, and I'm an idiot. I forgot to make sure it was nighttime, so I'll come back to that in just a minute. For now, along the eastern cliff, head north and you can grab a Revered Spirit Ash. Now we'll go into the town itself. It contains a few very minor items, though right at the end you'll find the Ailment Talisman. And then at the northwestern edge of the village, down below you, is another shack that we want to access. Don't try and jump down, because this will happen. I swear I die to gravity more in this game than I do to enemies. Now that I'm back, we're going to run there the normal way, take out this enemy, and then in the shack I was trying to access, we can grab the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 10. Just 2 more things to do here now. I'm finally going to make it nighttime and grab that larval tier, pretty much directly east of the Site of Grace. And for the final item, before we move out of the village, you want to head to the southeast into the rundown Traveller's Rest and grab the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 2. Please also note at the rundown Traveller's Rest, you may also be able to loot 2 Furnace Visages as you see here. As you will have just witnessed, they weren't there for me the first time I came here. I'm not sure if that's because I was on the pre-release build, or if you have to do something certain in the game to make them appear, but they are here now, so if they're there for you, make sure you grab them. Now we're going to head northwest into a lake to fight a dragon. As you're running up to the dragon, make note of an item you can loot right in front of him. This is your first new Great Katana. You don't have to grab it straight away, you can kill him first if it's a bit stressful doing both. But once he's dead, you will receive not only 100,000 runes, but also a dragon heart and a somber ancient dragon smithing stone. Now you can also grab the Great Katana if you didn't already. Then we're going to head northwest and sprint towards this Gravebird armor. Feel free to ignore all the Gravebirds if you want. They don't aggro until you have looted the armor, then you can just run away. Now we're going to head southwest, and I'll show you on the map in just a second. This is directly west from the lake. In this little crevice here, you will find the entrance to Belurat Gaol. So now, let's progress through Belurat Gaol. I'm going to completely ignore the start of Belurat Gaol because there is nothing of import. Just meet me at this room where we're faced with a lovely bloody jumping platforming section reminiscent of the journey down to the 3 Fingers. I have already mapped out what I believe is the 9 safest actions you want to take to get from jar to jar, and always aim for the center of the jar because it's very easy for the chains that hold them up to accidentally knock you off. So I will ask my lovely wife to write down on screen as we are performing each action. The 9 steps you want to take are as follows. Walk, walk, walk. Run. Jump. Jump. Roll. Drop. Plunging attack. Because the very final jar is not an environmental object, that is an enemy. So walk from the platform onto the first jar and then walk over the second 2 as well. Run onto the 4th one, jump onto the next 2, then roll, then simply drop off onto the final one, then perform a plunging attack, and you should get down first try, no issues. And now that we're down here, the real fun begins. Now, these next few sections are absolute agony. It is so confusing, definitely the most confusing area I have been to so far. And there isn't really any maps or markers or points of interest I can use to help you traverse this. So as much as I could try and explain my route to you, probably wouldn't help because sooner or later you are going to get lost, just like I did countless times. So what I'll do instead is I will call out every item in this area and show me looting it so you know where it is roughly, and then you can use this and pause the video to help you find it yourself. You will get there. It only took me around 5 minutes, but my god, it felt more like an hour. So the most important things down here that you want to grab are the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 11, 2 hefty cracked pots here, and also if you want you can loot some innard meat up here. Anyway, the next zone you come to is absolutely full of enemies. It is really scary. However, please do note, if you are willing to clear out the whole room, it will make the next thing I'm about to say much, much easier. There is a very hidden, quite important item that you can get to from this area, and doing so with all the enemies attacking you is going to be quite tricky. So, now that I've cleared out the room, head over to this ledge, and you can drop down onto this jar. This jar is actually a lift. It will start to take you all the way up. And when you're up here, it's a very straightforward route to progress through the next couple of areas. And eventually, you'll be back at the altar that you saw off in the distance before the floor broke in front of you and you fell down to the bottom level. Now that you're here, you can loot the Great Jar Helm. A quick rundown of why this helm is so insanely powerful. During the playtest, I believed that the base jar helm increased the power of throwing pots, and that the Great Jar Helm did the same for the new hefty throwing pots. In fact, the Great Jar Helm is just a straight up upgrade that will increase the power of every single pot in the game. So if you are going for a pot heavy build, this is literally just a straight up upgrade to the jar helm that will boost not only the new pots, but all of the old ones as well. So potentially, situationally, a really, really powerful helm. Now that you've done that, you can drop back down again and run all the way back to that room and start making your way to the final boss to face Demi-Human Swordmaster Onza. Don't worry, even if you get down to the bottom of the jail with no healing left, there is a stake of Marika there, so if he beats you, you will respawn. Once he's dead, you are rewarded with a new Spirit Ash, then you can get out and never come back here again. Next up, we are going to head back to the 3 Cross Gravesite and head west towards Belurat Tower. As you come out of the mountain, however, we're going to head south and hug the mountain to access a secret hidden area. Once you see the stairs in front of you, turn left, and you can climb up these rocks past the dogs, continuing south until you get to the Cliff Road Terminus. The main area here is a small town called Prospect Town, but we'll just grab all of the items on the outskirts first. Firstly, we're going to head east and slightly south, and right next to this small pool of water you will find revered spirit ashes. From here we're going to head almost directly south and up this small cliff, And here, as long as it's nighttime, will be a larval tier and a member of the Forager Brood. The Forager Brood are a new faction in the DLC, and they are friendly pests. So please do not kill them because they are needed as part of a quest line, and this quest line actually gives you some insanely good items, including a sort of attack for Torrent. But I won't go into that in this video here. That's not what the Things You Missed series is about, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, so keep your ears and eyes peeled. I will be releasing separate questline videos soon. There's a few more items to the east and the south, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's head back towards Prospect Town and all the way over to the Western Cliffs. Over here will be another jar-wielding Wandering Noble. Kill him so you can loot the Erdtree fragment. Now head east into the ravine, and if you look up, you'll see this pot hanging down. Equip your ranged weapon of choice and shoot it down to receive the String Seller's Bell Bearing. Now we'll run back to Prospect Town and start making our way to the top. This is another tricky to traverse area that you will literally need Torrent to access. And once you've made your way past the first few enemies and areas that are very uneventful, you'll come to a big clump of blood fiends. There's no way to get past them, they will aggro, so kill them all. I don't know if these were guaranteed drops, but I did get 2 of their weapons. I also decided to climb right to the top of this church, just in case anything was there. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. So you can head into the church for some loot, but before that I'm going to come to the bottom of these stairs and grab a Somber Stone 4. And then inside the church you will find a chest containing the Outer God Heirloom. This is the new arcane talisman to go along with the other 4 that we had from the base game. And in case you're curious, these are the 2 new weapons we just acquired as well. Now we'll head back out of Prospect Town and finish up Cliff Road Terminus by heading southeast. Back where we spoke to the new member of the Forager Brood, we're just going to keep heading southeast. I'll clear out this camp and grab this bit of loot on the way. And now you're about to encounter yet another new type of enemy. I would advise just grabbing the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 5 and running away, because these new giant lightning rams are absolutely brutal. As soon as you attack any ram, they will become aggressive and they are absolutely lethal. As you can see, I am getting wrecked here and just barely survived. Next, once we've dealt with these few rats, we're going to keep heading south, hugging the Western Cliff. However, wait just 1 minute before I forget, there is one more thing to grab up here first. Climb on top of the cliff right next to you, and at the very top will be the Artist's Shack. From here, grab the painting, and we will also be acquiring the reward for this painting later on in the video. Now head back down, and eventually you can go through a gap in the mountain, and you're ambushed by another one of the Kung Fu Birdmen. Once you have hopefully defeated him, you will find yourself at the Church of Benediction. Here you can grab the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman, which will slowly restore your FP, and also you can loot the full Oathseeker Knight set along with the Parter weapon. You'll probably notice the helm, this is the set of Lady Leda, and if you drop down, we are now back at the start of the DLC. We now have one final thing to do before we wrap up for this video and take a look at the map to see what we have done, and that is the painting reward. Now we're going to go slightly southwest of the lake where we just defeated the Ghostflame Dragon and looted the Great Katana. And down here, looking up to the bridge that leads to Belurat, you will see the painter that gives you the reward for the incursion painting, and this will reward you with the Serpent Crest Shield. Now let's take a look at the map, because we have done a huge amount today. We have covered the entirety of the western portion of the Gravesite plain. Everything I'm marking out here is everywhere we've been and everything we've done. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this episode here, and we will cover the eastern part of the Gravesite plain once we have tackled Belurat Settlement. So episode 2 will be Belurat, and then we'll continue on with the remainder of the Gravesite Plains in episode 3. And with that, my friends, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.